Right, everybody. Today we've got Leroy McIntosh with us, a good friend of mine from our playing days, myself and Nick. But we wanted to bring Leroy on today because he's in a unique position of being he's been in an academy as a coach, which he'll talk about shortly. But then more recently, he's been in an academy as a dad with his son playing for an academy. So Leroy's got loads of knowledge to share, loads of experiences to talk about, and just hopefully give some tips to parents listening. So Leroy, just before we go on, can you just give us a bit of an introduction to yourself?
Obviously my name's Leroy. Obviously know Nick and Luke very well from obviously my playing days. Um, Played a little bit, never went professional. Played semi-professional, if you want to call it that. And then decided that I wanted to go down the coaching route. I was still passionate about football, so I wanted to still be involved in it in some sort of capacity. So that's when I took down the coaching route.
And then that led you to Barnsley in Leeds,
Yes.
didn't it, as at the academy level. So can you tell us a bit about your role there?
Yeah, so I think before Barnsley, I was at Huddersfield initially for three and a half years, and they ended up closing their academy. They got promoted to the Premier League, which all the staff at the time thought that everybody would go full time, but it was David Wagner at the time decided that the academy was a little bit of a distraction. So he decided to close the academy and they'd rather just invest everything into the first team. So I lost my job, and then that's when it led to Barnsley. So I went to Barnsley initially and took the under 12s to begin, alongside another coach. Did that for a little bit, then moved on to the under 11s for a little bit, and then I was fortunate to be offered a full time position there.
And then that full time role, did you end up going into more of a leadership role?
Yeah, so the full time role consisted of basically sorting out any player from six all the way up to 11. So I was called the foundation lead. So my role was to, coach the coaches a little bit or just guide them. It was also to release players, unfortunately. It was also to sign players. And I'd have the last say in terms of players leaving and coming, sorry. It was to make sure the night runs smoothly. So that's making sure all the teams have got the right spaces, making sure coaches are going to be available. And if someone's not available, I'd have to then rearrange the session plan, maybe get a different coaching. So it was more of a management role
Yeah.
alongside a coaching role as well, because I was still coaching the under 11s as well.
Yeah, yeah. So you've been like full foundation phase into that sort of full academy level, like the pre-academy into the full academy.
Yeah,
Obviously, your most important job is being a dad,
yeah,
and we know Romario very well. He's a top lad. Credit to you and his mum. And obviously, he's been on his own journey recently, getting scouted and ended up at Leeds. And then, so I'll let you talk about that though. Can you tell us a little bit about Romario's journey?
yeah. So Romario's journey was started off from straight away, really. So I'm not going to sit here and say he was a kid who just came out and was naturally talented. There was a lot of work and a lot of playing, a lot of fun, a lot of playful interactions with the ball. Um, it might sound a bit cringy, but I was one of them Project Mbappe dads. I've got three daughters, so I was waiting for a boy so I could start the football. But also my daughters play as well now. So when he came along, obviously as you can tell by the name Romario, so straight away you could see what my thinking was already. So just started off just in the house with softballs, introducing the ball to him, getting him to kick it back to me, then try to get him to stop it and kick it back to me. Just the usual typical stuff, nothing magical, and just doing it consistently, just so that he got that feel for the ball, rolling it in, rolling it back to me, just all them little things. And then we started going outside and playing a little bit on the grass. To where he really liked it now because he liked it when the ball was kicked up in the air, which I think all kids do. See how high I could kick it, so he used to buzz off that. And then I thought, I want to get him into some sort of football a little bit more with a team now. So I took him along to a session with my good friend Fuad, who was running at the time Eber Gardens Football Club, which is just up in Lincoln Greenway. So we went there. The only problem was that they only had two age groups up at the time. So when he went, it was a little bit difficult. So he didn't really enjoy it initially. But I was also helping him coach there as well. So I try to coach and also keep him occupied in the session, which was quite difficult.
How
And
old was he there, Leroy?
so he would have been maybe 6 years old, and they would have probably been, I'm talking 6, 7, so they would have been 8. So it was so I think that hindered him a little bit because it was a bit hard. So I think he tried at first, and then it was a bit hard because there was 2 years above him. So he probably didn't enjoy it as much. So he just basically walk off. There was a park at the top of the hill, and he just walk off to the park, which was about 200 yards away. While I'm still coaching, so fortunately I used to have an assistant coach, so I'd have to go get him, bring him back down, and this would go on for like a few weeks. To the point where the other coach would just coach him within the session. Well, not coach him, but just have a kick about, just so he was amongst it all,
Mm.
amongst the boys. And then I kind of just stopped taking him for a little bit there. Wasn't really working, so he didn't really want to go nowhere else after that. So not that it was put off, but he just wasn't that interested in going, and I didn't want to force him at that young age. And then obviously I see Nick at his school, which was really really beneficial because he says that we're running foot tech here. So with it being his own environment, his own school friends, it fit perfectly. Didn't have to rush anywhere. We could just basically leave him there, watch a little bit, and then basically take him home. So he started doing foot tech there, which he really enjoyed. So he's now playing with his own age group now. I think the biggest part of it that he enjoyed was that it was a match straight away. He was blown away by that we just go straight into matches. He was like, wow. And he really liked that. So, and then he started going up to Leeds through foot tech. Luke Lyons
Lions,
was
yeah.
there. Yeah, and I think he was leading the under sevens at the time up at Leeds, and Nick invited us down to Soldiers Field where you were doing, I think it was a 3v3 tournament.
Yeah, he came to a 3v3 festival, yeah.
Yeah, which he enjoyed again. So he came there. He really, really liked that because I think that was one of the first times that he did anything like that.
Yeah.
So he really enjoyed that. And then we did another one after that to where then we met Paul, the Leeds United scout, and he invited us in, which at the time I initially thought it was a bit too early.
Mm.
Said to him, I'm a bit apprehensive about it. I'm not sure. So we had a lot. So I had a bit of a chat with him, and he just said, "Just you don't need to see it as a football club. Just see it as a training session. If he likes it, you just carry on. If he doesn't, you can pull him out. But I'd advise you just to bring him up." So we started going up, yeah, and then there was times in the beginning where he preferred to go to foot tech than Leeds. So the sessions clashed. They were both on the Thursday. So I let him start doing alternating
Mm.
for the first maybe 6, 7 weeks. He preferred to go to foot tech with his friends, playing the games. He really enjoyed the session format. So yeah, that was
The,
up to that point.
you've touched on loads of good stuff there. So like, because just before I go into that, so he didn't have, or do you think he had a natural talent when he was little, or is that just sort of been nurtured and grown as he's got older? Because we know that some kids are born, I don't know how it works, but some kids can just kick a ball from being very young. We don't know why, but it works. Did he have that, or was it just a case of he grew into it?
No, I have to be really honest. I know it sounds more magical when you can say, yeah, yeah, he just started whacking balls 20 yards straight away without me ever coaching him. No, it was a process of
Mm.
just playing with him all the time with the balls, introducing him to the ball more, rolling it into him dribbling down. We used to have these like brick blocks where I'd stack them up like a castle, and his job would be to just try and knock all
Yeah.
the blocks down. Sometimes he'd miss the blocks altogether, which was probably harder to miss because there was no space for him to miss. He'd still find a gap down the side and miss all the blocks. But then he started hitting the blocks and started knocking them down. So it was just step by step, yeah. No, there was nothing just automatically natural, no.
I love it because the play thing is massive, and I think some parents get involved with their kids and want to get out in the garden in the park and stuff, but then all of a sudden it's ladders, it's hurdles, it's poles, and it's all the serious stuff. Whereas play is massive. Play is massive for kids of any age, but in that younger end when you're just trying to introduce them to the sport and
Mhm.
make them fall in love with it, that time with you is massive for him. But then just being able to play these little games of trying to kick a ball and knock stuff down, it's massive, and it's that stuff that people need to understand is more beneficial than trying to control every single movement they make and making them dribble around cones and do it faster and all that sort of stuff. I love that. And the other thing as well that you said about not rushing him, you took him somewhere, you realised that it wasn't right for him, so you pulled him out, because that's another thing we see a lot where people try to force it. If the kid, even if the kid's half decent, if they don't like it, there's no point in forcing it, because they're just going to end up, they're going to want to quit.
Absolutely.
And so that for you to pull him out and then put him into something that he quite liked. I love that he liked the arrival matches, by the way, because we're big fans of that arrival matches at Foottex. That's good. And the thing there as well, if you have a kid that's got scouted into an academy, then straight away you're probably thinking it needs to be, I need to get in there every single week. I can't miss a single session. But the fact that you recognised he wasn't enjoying it as much as being with his friends and playing on a Thursday night, and you alternated that. I mean, that's got to have helped him longer term in terms of what he's doing now, which we'll come on to. So yeah, I love that. Absolutely love that. Um, so he's in Leeds, and then what's happened since then?
Yeah, so it was in Leeds. He started off a little bit slow in there. Kind of like I think the boys at the time when he first went in was quite ahead of him at the time. He'd not hardly played any grassroots games. Just with me pulling him out. And I remember they played a game and he didn't know. Do you know when a team scores and you got to bring it back to the halfway line?
Yeah,
He wasn't aware of that because just simply because he's not played
not played a match.
much.
Yeah,
So the ball was coming back, so the keeper just rolled it out to like send it back to the halfway line, and he's basically intercepted it, started dribbling to the goal.
bless him.
So the coach said, "I will leave the ball," but it's carrying on, carrying on. So and that happened 2 or 3 times. But then but then he started to pick up. He started to get better. Then we did start doing a little bit in the garden, with cones and me approaching him and him trying to take me on and me trying to push him over.
Hmm.
Sometimes he would get a little bit frustrated with that, with me tackling him and winning the ball off him. And so, but then he started to show more. Now I could start to see now that, okay, he's got a nice way with the ball. And that was through a lot of him dribbling here, dribbling there. But also, we also went to gymnastics as well for about 6 months.
Ah, okay.
Yeah, with his big sister. It was okay, the gymnastics. It wasn't a really expensive one. It was just a steady, almost like a community one. But I think that played a little bit of a part. He did a lot of balancing in there, so I think that helped a little bit more of his coordination. So going back onto Leeds, so he started to improve. He then got to a point where it'd been maybe 12 to 13 months where he was then offered a pre-contract with them. Prior to that, he got seen by Man United, a chap called Derv, invited us to one of their development programs, which was in Bradford, which was quite fitting because it wasn't as far. So we started to travel down there, which he really liked because we're Man United fans as well. So he really liked that, seeing the coaches with the Man United badges on. I think their pocket goals had Man United badges on them, stitched into them. And there were just Man United like kits and coaches everywhere. So he really, really liked that. So we started going there, started doing really well in there. So that was on top of Leeds. And then they invited us into the main group, which was down at Carrington. So we started going down to Man United initially first, which again, we started off really hard. The boys was very aggressive. It was quite intense. The session tempo was really quick. The boys was really, really competitive. So they do everything to win, whether that be, pulling, tugging, whatever they had to do, whether you knew or old, they'd just be on you straight away. So that was now going to Man United plus obviously for Patch. So we had a chat with Leeds, and they just says, and some people get disappointed by this, but for me, it's fair enough. Just because I've been in the role, so this is where being in the academy kind of helped in this situation. So they said, we need to plan for next season, so we can. So we're going to have to give you a bit. I think it was 4 weeks to decide whether you're coming here or there. Which at the time it was just a pre-contract, so they don't
No.
really have to say that because I can
Yeah.
still go wherever I want. But I understood where they was coming from because I've been in that position where I've had a boy all the way till the last week and then lost him in the 2 week before signing day, and I planned with
Mm.
that boy. So I totally understood it. I said, yeah, fair enough. Did 4 weeks at Man United. and at the time, I didn't feel he was fully there. So I just said to them, "We've been offered something at Leeds. I don't want to risk anything. He enjoys it. It's close." And they just asked, could we keep him until January so we could start playing the games against other academies or pre-academies? And I just said that I'd rather just go with Leeds. So we went back to Leeds, did all the pre-signing there with Luke again and another coach there. And yeah, carried on there for a little bit. Started enjoying it. Started playing tournaments now with Leeds as well. So now we're playing against the academy teams. So I think other clubs then start to watch more. So they start to send maybe scouts or coaches to come and watch these games. So we was then picked up or seen by Man City. This was in a Wigan tournament, I believe, and they just contacted and just said, that we'd like to have a look at him. So I just said, we'd already signed a pre-contract at Leeds. He's quite happy. And they just said just similar thing to what Paul said, just come and have a look at it. It didn't have to be a long process, a lengthy process. We respect that you're at Leeds, but we just want you to come and have a look at what we can do. It might be something that you prefer. So initially I said, no, I'm happy at the moment. Then after a while, I just said, yeah, that we'd come down. He played one tournament for them and they decided to offer. So now I'm in a position where we had Leeds and Manchester City. So it was a hard one. Yeah, you're going, sorry, Luke.
I'm going to say so. Man, at this point, then Man United hadn't offered.
No, Man United are not offered yet, so they're going to come back in a moment.
Okay.
Yeah. So they didn't offer. They then call me back saying that they'd like to get him back in immediately. So I told them that Leeds had offered, and obviously Man City had offered. So I didn't want to be dragging him everywhere. And they was on about having a look again. So with him having an offer at Leeds initially, and me pulling him out, I didn't want to then go back and have a look when there's now two offers. So I just says, yeah, because I think at that moment I would have preferred Man United with me being a fan, but they were saying they want to have a look at him for 3 weeks, which would have been at Leeds, Man United, and Man City altogether. So I just said no in the end. Carried on at Man City, carried on at Leeds a little bit. And then, yeah, we had to make the decision, which was a very, very difficult decision because Leeds is really close. There's, not all the motorway travel. I had a really fantastic meeting with Leeds down at Ellen Road, a little bit of a presentation just to show what they could offer. But in the end, it was really difficult to turn down Manchester City.
Yeah, and I get we don't need to, we probably don't have time to go into all the nitty
Yeah,
gritty
yeah.
offers and things, but yeah, you can understand that. I mean, it's what they're producing at the minute. You're seeing the standard of player that's coming through, and even if they're not making it at Man City, they're going on to other things, aren't they, and having an impact. You look at Cole Palmer's probably the latest example, isn't he? So yeah, the level there is ridiculous by the looks of it. There's another few. I've just been making notes as you've been writing, Leroy, because there's some real and more real good bits there. Like the gymnastics thing was interesting because I went down a rabbit hole in COVID of looking at how other sports can impact your chosen sport. So it's a donor sports impacting your chosen. Romario's chosen sport is football, but he did gymnastics, and does that help? And a really good book from an ex-coach at Ajax where he'd introduce a lot of this stuff. More lately, we've looked at it again, and I've been looking at it again, and there's arguments to say, well, yeah, but how good could they have been if they'd have just focused on football? And then people question things. Burner, there'll never be one rule, will there? And this is something you and I discussed before. There's not one set of rules that every kid follows that's going to determine their success in football, their development in football. Every single kid is different. But I think looking at other sports, one thing that I'm now sort of convinced of is I think they can act as like a release sometimes when you've got football and that's your main thing. Even at grassroots level, when you're taking it seriously, there'll be times when you're going through those, you can't kick a ball properly, you're having those downturns in form and it's frustrating you. But then when you've got this other thing through the week where you don't see it as like life or death, it's just an interesting thing for you to do and something you quite like, that can be massive. That could be a good release, different kids, different coaches, that sort of stuff. So yeah, that was really interesting with that. And then the thing that you started saying with the tackling, with you tackling him because it's you've done a gradual overload with him, haven't you? You've not gone hell for leather first thing. You've let him fall in love with playing football, and then slowly but surely you've introduced that next part to him.
Mhm.
Am I right in thinking he's never played officially for a grassroots football team?
Just on that, just on the gymnastics bit, really, really quickly,
Yeah.
because that's what I'm just starting to delve into now about mental burnout. So before, years and years ago, when people used to mention burnout, I used to just think it's physical in terms of he's doing Monday football, Tuesday football, Wednesday was swimming, this, but it's more the mental capacity.
Yeah.
So I think what will happen is, and this is, this will happen. So when you get the dads, because this is another factor, is the dads obviously wanting a lot from the son, and they mean best, and they mean really well, and I mean really well. But sometimes you start to get on the kid when they go to the second sport, because the dad and the son's first sport is football. The second sport, the dad takes a massive step back and is really relaxed. He's not concerned about if he's applying himself properly, if he's making mistakes, because it's not the first sport. So when they go there, everything is relaxed. So not only are you getting a different sport, they're looking over at dad. He looks really relaxed. He's getting in the car, everything's relaxed. Did you enjoy that? Yeah. What did you tell us
Yeah.
about it? Everything. Whereas with the football, everybody's go go go, and that's me as well at times. So I'm not going to sit here and say that I've been in that boat many times. But when you go to the second spot, everything's cool, calm, and really collect. So it
Yeah.
does release a lot of tension.
That's
Um,
that's the thing with the mental side. We'll never, I'm the same as you at the minute, learning more about the brain and how that impacts kids. And Nick and I just did a podcast on kids football fitness because people think kids need to be doing bleep tests and running
yeah,
through herd and all that. So what you've said there is a child could do football 5, 6 times a week for an hour at a time. You and I used to play out in the street for hours on end and not get tired. It's not so much the physical stuff. Of course, there's going to be a limit at some point, but if you go into the standard hour session and they're enjoying it and what have you, then that's not going to be that's physically that's not going to make a massive amount of difference. It's when you start adding the overload of the brain as well, because dad's on their case, or
yeah,
maybe you're at a session where the coach is just non-stop on them all the time and it's an overload of information and the physical side. That's when it becomes a problem. That's why we set up like we do. And I think some parents struggle to grasp that we try to guide. Not It's not a case of being seen and not heard, because we are heard, but it's encouragement and it's praise and it's guidance. And then if we have to step in and make a couple of coaching points, we will, but it's limit. It's not overload of information, because that's when the fatigue and the tiredness happens, when it's just too much.
yeah,
So that's it's an interesting point. But the other sport thing is, yeah, I'm the same. I'm still looking into it and seeing just how it can. But some parents say to us, I like the idea of taking him or her boxing or to tennis or to basketball, but they don't want to. They just want to play football, and that's fine as well. But
mhm,
then it's a case of don't take them to too many football sessions where it's just complete overload of, don't you? You stop and stand still merchants that let me tell you how much I know about football, everybody, and kids don't like it, and it just overloads the brain.
definitely.
Um, so the the other thing as well you mentioned, which is I think something that people don't realize when you get into these sort of environments, is that tenacity of the kids. You and Nick were stood watching some of the games that Romario was playing when we've been up to the academy and done like the 3v3 air pitch stuff, and the the level of intensity, the tenacity, it's channeled aggression. They're just so like determined, aren't they, to go and win that ball and get the ball back. I don't think many people realize or are prepared for that. And even if you've got a kid that's unbelievable on the ball, that can really throw them. It's and was that the same then? Obviously at Man United, Man City as well.
Yeah, I think at Man United, initially, maybe because I'd been at Leeds for quite a while, so he'd kind of adapted to the tempo there. When he went to Man United, it was again a little bit further up again. It was quite tight. It was very, very. A lot of the boys were very, very competitive, and I don't know if a lot of it comes from the parents, from the environment. But yeah, it was intense. It was you didn't have a minute, you didn't have a second on the ball, or everybody's sweating, everybody's dripping. Very aggressive. Sometimes not cheating is a wrong word, but just pulling, tugging,
Yeah.
leave a bit on you sometimes, and everything just goes.
Sorry, we went down that rabbit hole then of going about the other sport, but I'd asked you the question about so he never officially played for a grassroots team
No, so we did go back, and then he did start to play for them in the under sevens.
at Eber Gardens.
Yeah,
Yeah,
they didn't have a sevens or an eights at the time, so he had to play with the nines. But at this point, he was now a little bit better, so he could cope now. And it wasn't a Division One under nine team, so he wasn't playing 2 years up in like a Division One. It might be Division Five.
yeah,
So some of the players weren't as still wasn't as technically there or spent a lot of time with the ball enough yet. But there was physically very big, and the pitches was very big. So he was getting the running side of it, not the fitness, but just having to sprint longer distances more, cover more ground. It was the boys who he was with was a little bit more mature. Um, and yeah, so I think he did take a lot from that. And another part of that was I was the coach, so
yeah.
so he's not had any other coach for quite a while other than myself. And then it was Funtech, and then it was Leeds. So with me being the coach, and also at the time still in the academy, I was still coaching. Not there wasn't academy sessions, but an academy, playing out. Not really going along, being brave with the balls, but really talking about being brave. So sometimes you can get coaches, not all again, who speak about being brave, but when the game comes on, they start asking them to get rid of it. So I
Mm.
praise, if a ball will come over the top, a striker chasing the centre half, probably the easiest thing to do is just to kick it out. But I would praise if he tried to turn, lost it, and scored it. But I would genuinely really praise that. And then
Mhm.
eventually that started to wear on the players. They started to feel to the point where sometimes the parents would almost clash a little bit and say, but you're putting him under a lot of pressure. You like let him just kick it out almost. But I just said if he wants to, have a bit of a even if it's an amateur, if he can be calm on the ball, keep the ball. That has to start from somewhere. So why not start now? When are you hoping
Yeah,
for
yeah.
him to? When are you hoping for him to start to learn that? So with that being said, so Romero didn't really know about clearing the ball. So that's probably where he was a bit short because he probably couldn't hit longer passes because he played everything short initially. Because we'd always talk about trying to play. Don't matter if you lose the ball. Don't matter if we try playing to the midfielder and he's marked and he loses it. Don't worry about it. And we'd talk about that all the time.
Yeah.
And I think that's really helped him, especially in the position that he's now playing.
He's probably had so much opportunity to make more decisions as well.
Yeah,
Because
yeah.
if a coach is telling a kid you must whack it out of play or whack it as far as you can every time you get the ball, there's only one decision being made every time they go. The fact that he's been allowed to get on the ball, it's now a case of right, do I need to dribble past this lad or do I need to pass into my midfield? All that sort of stuff. So he's just had so much more opportunity on the ball, but then to make more decisions, which obviously then has helped him on two fronts moving into his. So was he playing there for what was season?
Yeah, maybe 3 quarters of a season, which he enjoyed, along with Leeds. So Leeds would play Saturday, and then he'd play Sunday with them.
Okay.
And I think I think he enjoyed both. I think initially there were certain teams that was quite hard for him at the beginning, where they had some good players in there. So I'd kind of manipulate things a little bit. So if the player was on the left wing, I'd put him on the right wing, just because I was conscious it was 2 years up. Just basically down to the physical side of things because sometimes you get some aggressive under nines. And bearing in mind he's only 7 and he's got quite a small frame. Not nobody was trying to hurt anybody, but he's just being mindful of that. And just to make sure that he got some success, because otherwise, like we said earlier, if there's no success there, then it starts to become a bit of a chore.
Yeah.
Yeah, do I have to go there again? Is it going to be 2 years up again? So I just had to try and manage him. And if the team was really, really difficult, then I'd leave him out of the game and just play him for the last 5 or 10 minutes up front.
Yeah, it's great. How you've managed that is brilliant. Because I'd before this podcast, I'd sent you some questions to go through, didn't I? Because I just thought there'd be so much good stuff you can share, and that's just a complete lesson there in how to manage it with a child that is not ready for for playing at that level, playing at that age group, and how you've done it. Do you? Has there been times when he has struggled? So you just mentioned that he struggled there, but has he ever lost the love for it at any point since he got the bug?
Yeah, so I really thought about that question carefully. And at first I thought no, but thinking and really thinking about it, not I wouldn't say he lost it to where he said I don't want to go, but it's just where he would have lost it was where I got it wrong. So where I'm challenging him all the time, so putting him in stressful sessions all the time with older boys, stronger boys, physical boys all the time. So I'm still seeing that he's getting success, but he's only 7, 8, 9 to where he's thinking, I'm not getting enough success. So ultimately, at that age, they don't enjoy it. They don't see the longer term of, well, if I go with harder players, I'm going to get better. Then when I play against my own age, it'll be a bit easier. He's just seeing as I'm not getting success. So success equates to enjoyment. So that's where sometimes they'd be thinking, oh, do I have to go to that session? So that helped me to think, okay, that means this week or the last 4 or 5 weeks, he's not had enough success. So then I take him to a slightly lesser session where I know he's going to get success. And then he's smiling again, he's scoring loads of goals, he's taking everyone on, or he's winning tackles more. And it's just trying to get that balance right, because I know everybody wants this playing up and playing older age group, and which is fine, and it does improve definitely. So again, it definitely improves players by playing with older boys socially, psychologically, technically, and also physically. But it's just overcooking it can sometimes start to come back to the burnout.
Yeah.
And I think that's where the burnout comes from, where they're not getting enough success.
Yeah, I love it. It's so true. It's that time and space thing, which is so simple when you think about it. Like the how do you get better at football? And it's that it's just being given less time and space on the ball, to make and execute decisions. But too much of that too soon. It,
Mhm.
like you say, because they're still kids.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
if he's not having success by smashing it in top corner once or twice in a session, or
So,
getting past a player, it's just going to be boring for them. And again, going back to pr putting them into sessions and into different environments, this is where putting them into what I guess you class it as an underload environment,
mhm.
can be massive. That underload environment for me and you was street football, but we don't have that anymore in many areas. So if you're a parent listening to this and you've got a decent player, it might be worth seeking out something where you can put them in a bit more of an underload thing where they can have that success. They're probably going to have they will have a bit more time on ball and could probably try a few different things, maybe try working on their weaker side a little bit more or whatever. But going back to that brain thing, that mental thing, we don't realize the impact that these sorts of things can have on that and their enjoyment, and then they take that back into their other sessions. We had a parent message us, I think it was last summer, and he's got a 7-year-old kid, said that he was in an academy and wanted to come to the camps, our summer camps. And we do a lot of football at our summer camps. We mix it in with loads of fun stuff, prizes, all that sort of, the kids love it. But we also want to do football and make sure they're getting better at football. And he'd said something like, "Can I just check that he'll be with X playing up a year or something like that because I don't want him to get bad habits." And I'm like, are you out of your mind? Bad habits from a couple of days at a summer camp, and he's 7 years old. And then reading between the lines, then you're thinking, so are all his friends going to maybe another camp, and you've come to the realization that that's not good enough for him, so you've had to seek out another camp where. But all his mates are going to this other place where they'd have a laugh and enjoy it, and like you say, he's going to have some success. You just think, people are forgiven for making these decisions because they maybe don't think, they maybe think they're doing the right things, but the problems occur when you'll maybe present information like this and they still make those decisions for the kid because it isn't the best thing longer term, really. And that's what you've done there, and Mario's prime example.
I think a lot of it comes from the pressures of pre-academies, and it's something that's just there. It's not that they're trying to put pressure on you, but there's a system in place whereby people stay and people go. So the people are thinking, to make sure I don't go, I need to be improving all the time, which means you start limiting the fun. And the fun, I mean, where you're just constantly challenging them. And again, I've done it, so I'm not saying I haven't done it, where you just want to challenge them all the time because we feel that challenging him is what's going to stretch him and what's going to make him develop. But there's definitely a time where they need to have fun because you will. That's when the mental burnout comes, and if they're not enjoying it, ultimately they're not going to be the player that they should have been. Because later on, it gets very hard where the enjoyment starts to become a little bit less. So
Yeah,
they need to be able to recall back to the passion and the love. This is why I'm doing it. So you built up such a strong, almost wall to keep you going in them difficult moments. But if you've never had that, it's always been difficult moments all the time, then there's no wall there. So that's when you get I don't want to do the football anymore. I'm exhausted. I'm not enjoying it. I don't even want to do it. I want to leave it. And that's probably the most dreaded situation.
100%. Um,
Can I just
last,
let me just close these blinds a little bit because I can see the sun.
no worries.
Yeah. So just before you go on, there's like an analogy that I like to use, which is the PlayStation analogy. So you're very rare to see a kid getting burnt out from playing on the PlayStation, and these PlayStations, Switches, these sort of gaming people, like you said, everything's about play. I think they've got it down to a T. So they also, for example, let's use FIFA. The kid will set up on FIFA. They're quite quick to learn how to do it themselves, so you don't have to set anything up for them. Kids just pick it up quick, and that's because they're so excited to go on the game. And I was just asking myself, why are they excited? How can I make kids that excited to obviously want to play and be excited because you're onto a winner. When they're really excited to go out themselves, you don't have to ask them. They just go out in the garden, they play by themselves. And I think when you go on FIFA, there's different levels. So they can go to beginner if they fancy that. So they want to get the success, they want to smash a team 15-0. And sometimes I'm thinking, when Romario used to play that for ages, I was thinking, but are you enjoying that? And then I thought, I'm not like, so that was just one time I just said, oh, do you enjoy that? Always winning 15-0, but he used to smile and celebrate every goal at like 11, 12, 13. So I just thought, I'm going to leave him. Then I realised he's now winning 9 and 7 and 6. So I said to him, oh, have you, so this is like weeks and weeks down the line. I just pop in and he says, oh, yeah, Dad, I'm on professional mode now. So he's gradually stepped it up himself. He's past that stage now and he's moved on to the next step. And if it got harder, he'll go back. So if he starts getting frustrated with it, he'll go back down to beginner to get some success again, to get the enjoyment back in. Then he'll go to world class mode where he's starting to now enjoy the tussle and enjoy the battle and appreciate the goals even more now. Now I can hear shouting upstairs and screaming and get in and banging the pad on the floor. And so he's gradually working the levels up and down himself. And I think that's where it goes back to having that fine balance of not going straight to world class mode or legendary mode straight away because they're going to get fed up and then they put the pad away, put the PlayStation back in the box and end up saying, I don't want to play that no more. So gaming's they've got certain levels all the time that you can keep going up and down with, which keeps that excitement. It keeps it fun. They can manage the levels of success. So we as parents, we have to be able to manage and recognise when they need success and when we think, right, okay, now we need to challenge him more because that's going to be probably even more entertaining for him as well.
yeah, I love that. I love that, and that's where more problems come, don't they? Because I think a lot of people jump to that biggest challenge too soon,
Mhm.
and they think it's a race that if they're not in the team at 7 years old, the grassroots team at 7 years old, if they're not in an academy at 5 years old, then it's the end of the world. But you'll have seen it time and time again. Those kids that just end up coming into it a bit later on because they've probably been left to enjoy it and develop at their own pace. Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah, it's a great one. Just last thing on that then. Would if you could rewind it from where he is now to when he started, would you change anything?
Again, that's something that I felt without that question being posed to me, that there wouldn't be nothing. But because I've read the question, thought about them carefully, Um, I think at first I was adamant, no, there's nothing. I'm happy with how everything's gone. But I think yeah, I would have done more grassroots so he gets a little bit more enjoyment because the grassroots, I remember I was very relaxed, because there's no out or in. You come and you're playing whether you're not doing well or you are. There's no potential like a letter coming saying, unfortunately, we don't feel the player's not done well enough in this last 3, 4 blocks, and we think we'd like to move him down. So you haven't got that stress, so you can just watch and enjoy. Because I think kids become really good body language experts, because they see him at him a touchline. You think you're not saying anything, but your body's saying to them, you look frustrated, you look angry, and they can read how you're going to be without you even saying anything on the pitch. So you might say, no, but I'm quiet, I don't say anything, but they can see that you're looking really tense, you're looking flabbergasted, you're looking so I think, yeah, so I think I would have probably left him a little bit longer and done some more galas and all that type of thing, because there was a period where he'd not won any medals or anything. And once you get into the pre-academy or academies, it was very rare that there was medals. And I think that's where Man City did really well, because I don't know if they did it on purpose or whether they knew or they didn't know, but they every weekend, I think for the first 4 or 5 months, they did a mini tournament which was held by them, where they'd get 3 teams in or 4 teams in, and you just basically work around and you play a tournament, and they'd have leagues and they'd have the Tournify app up every week. This was, and then if you won it, then you'd get a medal. So now he's got about 10 or 6 or 7 medals now from them in-house tournaments, because otherwise he would have had no medals, because he didn't get to do any galas really. He didn't really play much in grassroots. So I would have probably done a bit more grassroots.
Yeah.
And then just the body language, yeah, body
Yeah.
language and that car journey. I would have had sometimes I've been a bit too hard on him. About, and it's not hard about him not passing the ball in time, or him not shooting, or him not staying on the ball long enough, or him not winning tackles. It was more about, and thinking back, it's too early to be even still thinking about just him applying himself, and me wanting to try and build a certain work ethic in him that he can take on in life as well. So I just want him to give everything all the time. But again, he's still 8. So there's going to be times where I go to work and I'm not 120%. So I've got to remember that. But when you're there as a father and you're watching him and you know the level that he can play at, and he's not playing at that level because he's not working hard enough, or he's walking back instead of sprinting back, or he's leaving his man, he knows he's there and he's just jogging. It starts getting a bit frustrating for all dads, because that work ethic is paramount to anything.
Yeah, I get that, and I think we get a lot of parents ask us for our advice on these sorts of things, like when is it okay to not shout at your kid, but when is it okay to have these conversations with them and pull them up on? And I think like you say, you need to manage it. It can't be every single time you pick them up on every single little thing. But if there's a few times when they are not trying, then I think that's a conversation to have, because if he's in a grassroots team, he's taking the place of a player that
Mhm.
might try and really want to do this stuff. There's so much, you need more context, don't you? There's so much more to it. Something might be going on at school or whatever, you don't know. But if it's just a case of they can't be bothered, then that's a conversation that needs to be had, doesn't it? Because, like you say, certainly for the longer term as well, you can't just turn up and expect to be put in the team and not try.
Mhm.
That's so yeah, okay, good. Um, how has being a coach in an academy system shaped the way you're approaching it now with Romario as an academy dad?
Yeah, I think there's positives, just in terms of having a little bit of experience of what the academy are looking for, and then there's also negatives as well, which is probably hard to believe, but it's something that I've read in a book now, so I've got a bit more of an understanding about it, and it's like the curse of knowledge. So because you know a bit more, you end up wanting a bit more. So I end up wanting more from him, rather than letting him be an 8. It's you start thinking too far ahead, because this can happen at this point, this will happen at this point, this needs to be shown by this point. If you don't know all that, then you just go along as normal. But when you know all this and this and this and this, then you start to overly plan and you start thinking about too much, too far ahead. But in terms of the positives, yeah, I think there's positives in terms of like the way I coach him, understanding about patience, understanding about that he's going to make mistakes, that is not going to be great all the time, and this is still a learning point as well, because you still get frustrated. It's just the main frustrating thing is just that work ethic. But in terms of the academy, going back to that, yeah, I think just be more patient, and understanding that, what's what's really required.
Hmm.
Uh, uh,
Okay.
uh, yeah.
The I wanted to quickly ask you about the realities of it as well, because you mentioned earlier on the travel and that sort of stuff. All it sounds great, doesn't it, being in these places and getting a contract and all that sort of stuff. But for you personally, what impacts has it had on you? What are the realities of it?
Yeah, it's hard, mate. It's because on everything, I think it impacts everything in terms of my work life, in terms of probably relationship with with the mum as well. Siblings probably missing out a little bit, and at times feeling obviously left out. So I think it's had a massive, it has a massive impact just because of the time constraints, and you have to be here, you have to be there. You're thinking about it all the time. You want him to be improving all the time. It's all you're talking about. It's all you're thinking about. And then when you're not talking about it, you're away doing it. He's going to this session. He's traveling to Manchester on an evening. So it's hard for me to really go into a proper full-time job just because of the amount of time required, 4 to 5 days a week, and then also traveling to Manchester and back, which is something that I accepted, something that I had a long, chat with the mum about, and something that we want to do.
Yeah. No, fair play. I think that's something that people don't realise, do they? Um, Max, who we had with us for a long time, who was doing one-to-ones with me since primary school, he got picked up by Wolves, and the families had to move down there. And I went and watched him play against Sunderland last year, end of last year, and talking to his mum and dad, it's massive. They've had to up sticks and leave their home to facilitate this, to make sure he's comfortable down there. He's thriving, he's loving it. But for a parent, people often forget that it's a massive, massive sacrifice. Interesting point on him, Leroy. Going back to what you were saying earlier on about having like a different sport or putting them into those underload environments. I often think this with the one-to-ones. We're not huge fans of one-to-ones for a lot of kids, but Nick's worked with a boy at Leeds who just made his 18s debut at the end of last season. I worked with Max for a long, long time. It's not that it's a different sport. It is very much an underload environment, but it's also, I think that was a release for them. Nick and I can never turn around and say, oh yeah, Max signed for Wolves and signed a professional contract because he did one-to-one to me. Not in a million years, but I think him being able to come and Nick's boy being able to come and just play for 45 minutes. It's almost like home training with feedback, having a mate to play with. And yeah, we work them and put them into situations or whatever. But I think that going back to the brain and the mental side, it's yeah, you've got me thinking there about that sort of stuff, that it might have an impact as well. Um, would you what would you change about the academy system in general?
So I made a bit of notes now. Let me just so I don't forget anything. Yeah. So um, I think just get them notes up. Yeah. So for me personally, from being inside the academy, two different academies, not to say anybody's right or wrong, but I would think about hiring specialists within each department. So, for example, you've got your foundation department, which is typically from 9 to 11. Some academies go to 12s just to help with the high school transition. So they keep them in the foundation for that year. But most academies just do 9 to 11. Then you've got your YDP phase, which is youth development phase, which would be considered normally typically from 12 to 16. Then from 16, you go into your scholarship, into your PDP phase, which is your professional development phase. So in the foundation, I would think about getting a specialist foundation coach. So what I mean by specialist is somebody who just wants to work with that age of kid. So not somebody who's using that as a stepping stone to move into the YDP to eventually try and get into the 21s. Somebody who's just like he loves to work with kids from 9 to 11, and he's done it for quite a long time. So he starts to understand because sometimes an under 14 coach is not always great for an under 9 kid, and it's hard to transition from constantly coaching a 14-year-old to then suddenly going down to the kid who's 8. It can obviously test your patience because they're not as receptive at times. They're very playful, they're very giddy, and some coaches can do it. But for me, I would get a specialist in who just wants to stay with the foundation, and that's what his passion is. And I think that you'll get more out of the coach that way.
Yeah, it's interesting because I think the what a lot of parents listening to this don't realize is certainly at that foundation phase, a lot of the coaches aren't full time.
Yeah,
It's a part time job. It's not 100% of what they do, and a lot, and they'd maybe be forgiven for seeing it as a step in their career because they want to move to those older ages where the full time jobs are available. I don't know if that's in every single academy, but certainly in a lot that I'm aware of. And so, yeah, it's I
that's
guess a lot of clubs don't pay for full time foundation coaches, do they? Which where somebody can build a career and just 100% focus. Like I think you're right. I think if you have those specialists in there, then it'll just make for a much better experience and environment for everybody. But I get it from a coach point of view as well. If you are wanting to be a full-time coach, you've got to work with those older age groups a lot of the time, haven't you?
No, you're absolutely right. So that my third point is obviously more money in the foundation department so that it makes it, viable and exciting to want to do that because it's something that you can have a career from. So I would definitely think about most of the clubs start to hire full-time foundation staff so that then they're more willing to obviously stay there because now it's a full-time job for them as well.
Yeah.
So otherwise, exactly what you just said, if the full-time's in 14s up, then everybody's going to want to be in the 14s up. So you're not taking your eye off the ball, but you're not as passionate because you're thinking, well, not that I don't want to be here, but I want to be somewhere else, 14, 15, 16s. I think the next one would have been having a definitive mental strength, like something that's definitive around mental strength. So to try and build mental strength, just because I think it's very, very important, which we'll get on to later on when you asked about the last question about the players. That probably should have made it, but probably didn't. And I think it comes down to the mental strength. So I think so they do work on it, but it's almost just within a session. But I think it should be something that's definitive that we are going to be working on mental strength tonight, and it doesn't have to be workshops or the psychologist doing it. I just mean within the session. So that might be having part of the session where there's not a lot of success and getting them used to there's going to be moments where there's not a lot of success. Maybe having a weekend where the player doesn't play much, but then you can fill it up next week with more games and then just explaining to him sometimes, this may come. Um, but it's just more something definitive around that, building that mental strength.
I think I'd agree, mate, and I think it's something for kids in general, not just kids playing football, not just
Yeah,
kids in
yeah.
academies, but I think kids in general now. It's we see it in schools. You know that sort of resilience that we probably had a little bit more exposure to or chance to build as kids because we were out playing with no adults and we had to solve all our conflicts and fight our own battles. That doesn't happen as much now, not even in the playgrounds at school. So, yeah, I think it's a great point. Anything else on that, Lee, before we move on?
No, no, I think that the academy does deserve credit for the social side. Bringing the kids on socially. It's giving them tasks in training. Well, the ones I've been at, we do a lot around tasks around getting them to communicate, player-led sessions, which is really, really important because they miss out, from just what you said then about playing out, something as small as going to knock on someone's door and asking is Luke playing out.
Mm.
That's building your social capacity. Me having to knock on the door, don't know who's going to answer, and being confident enough to say is Luke playing out or is Luke home. And I think they missed that from not playing out. Those sort of things. Having to, and now with the phone as well, so you probably don't have to go and speak anymore. You just text that. Are you coming out? So before I'd have to walk to your house, which could be a mile away, and not
Yeah.
know whether you're coming out or not. So I think that the academies do a bit around the social side, which I think they need praise for.
You think about the for kids in academies as well, probably playing Saturdays, and if you're away, or like yourself, every game's an away game for you. Romario's probably missing out on stuff like kids' parties and all
Yeah.
that, which are massive out there. So yeah, so it's good that he's getting to develop those skills in that environment because he's probably missing out in the school environment a lot of the time, isn't he? With his school friends and stuff on a weekend. I wanted to ask you about three bits of advice, or your best bits of advice for parents with kids who are currently in academies or in and around.
Um, Definitely the car journey. Trying to relax a little bit, and it's listen, and this goes out to myself as well. And I think what's helped a little bit with myself is planning what I'm going to be looking for. So if I want to give him the feedback, because feedback is always important, and you can't help it. You watch a game and you're always going to have some feedback. It's almost planning for what you're going to give feedback on. So what I mean by that is it might be something along the lines for Romario is passing forward. So he might have a couple of weeks where he keeps passing back to the keeper or passing to his centre back next to him. It's can he pass forward into the winger, even more into the midfielder, or can he do, a massive one into the striker, and just be focused on just that. And then when he gets back in the car, you're just discussing that only. Why not? Why do you think that you couldn't? He might say, oh, it was blocked off, or just the striker wasn't showing, or whatever. But it's just around that, rather than when you go to a game as a dad, you're looking at everything. So your lens is on him before he receives the ball, whilst he's on the ball, and after the ball's gone. So if you're looking at an 8-year-old kid for the whole game for 20 minutes, you are going to find a lot to have to discuss. Like, you're giving feedback. So that's where these chats can go on for an hour. You can end up, because listen, I'm going to be really honest. I've had chats with him where we've come from 4 parts back to my house all the way back. Why this? Why that? Why not this? Why not that? And that's me from being an academy coach as well. So I can only imagine. So I think being an academy coach and being an academy dad is two completely different things. When I was an academy coach, it used to frustrate me when parents would start coaching the kid from the sidelines and saying this and saying that and shouting at the kid. But becoming a dad, I 100% understand. It's different from coaching and being a parent, because there's an emotional there's an emotional feeling. Whereas when I'm coaching like a kid that's not my son, the patience levels are really high, and it's a lot different. So you do, and you really want the best, and you think in your mind, what I'm doing here is for the best for him. I need to give him all this information to where he probably hears first 3 minutes of it, and then the rest of it he don't hear anyway.
The difference for you though, Leroy, is you've number one played the game, number two coached the game for a
Yeah,
long,
yeah,
long time at
yeah.
a decent standard. So I think you'd be forgiven for giving him some coaching points and stuff like that. I think the issues can arise when people that have never had experience of either of those things
Yeah.
start trying to tell a kid how to play football.
Yeah.
Um, Number two.
What did I have as two? Yeah, so trust the coaches. So it kind of links in. Trust the coaches. If because they might have a plan in the working week for your son to, for example, um, playing less touches. So, for example, can you play one touch around the corner at times? Can you receive and play straight away? Obviously, given the context. And then you're on the sideline saying to him, stay on the ball, take your man on. So you're giving him that information, but they've had a working week around playing quicker. Can you receive on your back foot to turn forward and play forward quickly? But then you're telling him on the sidelines, no, 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 no. I want you to stay on the ball. Why are you passing it off? You've not been on the ball for ages. Stay on it. Take your man on. Beat him. Beat the next guy. So it becomes really contradictory. So it's just trying your best to trust what the coaches are doing, and going on to the playing up and playing down. There might be an instance where the coach feels that playing down might be the best thing, and it's having the trust, And if you're not sure, ask, why. Okay, why is it the best thing? But normally they should. I'd like to think be forthcoming with the clear information um, as to why.
Well, you gave, and that was the example I wanted you to talk about. You gave the example of a player playing down when you were at Barnsley because you wanted him to work on certain things in that underload environment, so he had more time to help him then with his own age group. Can you just give us a quick example on that, Leroy?
Yeah, so it was a smaller player, played up front, really, really good player, but just wanted to work on his finishing more. Because he's in an environment where he was quite small, he wasn't able to get the opportunities that we would have liked him to have achieved. He may get one or two opportunities in the game, which means he's not going to be creative with them opportunities. He's not going to try different, like a different type of finish. He's just going to try and be standard with the finishing because he doesn't feel like he's going to get another chance. So after seeing this, had a long discussion and just thought playing him down up front with players probably more his size now, where he's going to get a lot more success and a lot more opportunities. Where we saw the long term thinking was he gets 6 or 7 chances in a game now and scores 2 or 3 goals. His confidence is going to go through the roof. He's going to get much more realistic, game realistic practice on finishing because you can do one-to-ones on your finishing, pull off a mannequin, touch out the feet, whip it into the far corner, which is great. It builds a little bit. But the best way you can teach a player is allowing him to do it in a game. And that's where I think the grassroots again helps just because it's at times easier and he's going to have more chances to work on his finishing. He can work on a little dink. But if you're thinking you're only going to get one sniff here, you might not try the dink. You might just want to try and blast it into the corner. So that was the reasoning as to why we wanted to play him down. And I think that explanation and communication is paramount rather than just saying that we want to play him down because we think it'll improve him, but it's explaining in detail as to why.
Yeah, I love that. Love that. And it's so, so true. They need to be playing in those opposed environments if they're really going to take their learning to the next level, the one-to-ones and all that. Yeah, like you say, there's bits happening, but it needs to be in those real game-like situations. And if you can do that in a match where against players that aren't as good, but they're still coming to tackle you, there's still decisions to make and so on, then yeah, massive. Last one, Leroy, for that last bit of advice.
So the third one two was obviously going back to the body language, so I don't really need to delve into that bit. So back into the body language, trying to be as positive as possible. So you might think you've had a good weekend because you've not said much this week and you've not shouted from a touchline, but also your body language, trying to be positive, and I think encouraging. Trying to encourage more, trying to pick out good bits after the game, and you're always going to pick out bits that they need to improve, but try not to have because everybody will think, right, I'm going to do some good bits and I'm going to do some bits where I want them to improve on. So you'll do 2 minute chat on the good bit and 23 minutes chat on the bits that you want them to improve on. So again, they've forgotten about the good bit and they're just thinking about it's just in their eyes, it's not areas for development, it's negatives. To be right, they just see it as it's my dad not having a go, but just criticizing or not happy with. And we used to call it something called the post sandwich. So you'd have the bread, which is the positive, the poo in the middle, which is the areas for development, and then back to the positive, and then back to some more positives again. So you finish off with the positive. So the last thing they remember is the positive part, and I think that would be really, really useful.
And that's for grassroots as well, which is
Yeah,
what
yeah,
I
yeah.
wanted, and that's what I wanted to as well. Is if for us, um, we work with academy players and whatever else, but a bulk of what we do is for try to give advice to parents in the grassroots world as well, and it's parents that have concerns and stuff because it doesn't matter what level of football they're playing at. I think a lot of the concerns are quite general, so it's helpful for everybody. So certainly some of that stuff you've said there is perfect for grassroots parents as well. But anything in particular for grassroots parents listening, Leroy?
Um,
I
I
think the
think
body language one is massive for me.
Yeah, so I think the body language, I think depending on where they're at and what their expectations are, I think a big thing is obviously making sure at that point that you are having 70% of it is that they're really enjoying it. Because if your ambition is long term to then go into an academy or go into a shadowed development group, then the pressure does start to come a little bit more because now you're not just there every week guaranteed. So in that grassroots stage early, try to make sure that they are having a lot of enjoyment, that they're coming away, the kids smiling. Did you see that goal, mum? Or dad, what about what about the finish I did? Or what about the corner I took? And just really be happy with them. And same in the academy as well. But I just think that grassroots stage is really, really about, really enjoying the self.
Yeah, and I think something we say all the time is don't see success as or success only as my child needs to be in an academy. My child needs to be the best player in the team. My child needs to win player of the season.
Mhm.
The success in grassroots football and football in general comes in many, many other forms. The fact that they're outside playing with other children and getting exercise benefits and all that sort of stuff, that on its own is massive. And one thing we always say is if you're seeing your child still play football in their mid-20s and early 30s like we did, then you've won. You've won because that, I mean, you think about all the laughs we had, the nights out, the games, the trophies that we won, all that sort of stuff. You don't forget that, and the only way that you can help your child get to that and experience those things is that they enjoy it and they therefore want to stay playing like you and I did.
Friendships. Yeah, the
Yeah,
friendships.
friendships. Yeah, it's massive. I think sometimes, especially with social media now, people are dragged into this whole oh my kid needs to be in an academy for that to have any sort of for them to value themselves as a football parent or whatever else. And there's all the stuff on the sidelines as well, isn't there? Parents talking to other parents about, oh yeah, he's being picked up for this and she's being picked up for that. It's just
Mhm.
not to be drawn into that and just
Yeah.
focus on your kid. Don't yeah, what is it? Comparison is the thief of joy. It's just enjoy watching your child play football and think, what can I do to make sure he or she wants to come back next week and just keep going. And we want to challenge them, don't we? Of course, and let them progress. But that doesn't. There's ways to do it. So yeah, thank you for that, Leroy, because there's some really really good tips there. The last question I wanted to ask you, which I think is an interesting one for people listening, is what are the differences you think in the players, the kids that go on to be the players that make it, and the ones that don't? And I'm not talking there about an academy and a really good grassroots player. I'm talking there about the male and female players that are in high level academies or playing at high level, sorry, and then one or two of them go on to sign a professional deal, and even the other one that was really really good doesn't quite make it. What are the differences there? You think?
Yeah, I think a lot of it comes down to now the mental, the mental side, the mentality. Because once you get to that 16 to 21, normally most of the players are technically sound, physically strong, can get around, tick a lot of the boxes. But the last one is that mental box, and I think, and it's that maturity. Big thing is how quick they can mature. And I know you want them kids to have their childhood, but you have to mature quite quickly. And when I say mature, I mean not being worried about what other people think. So getting to training early and doing some extras, because sometimes that's a challenge because it's depending on the environment, it doesn't look cool. It looks like he's forcing it, or he's a buzzing bee, or he's this, or he's that. But it's being able to ignore that and think, listen, this is what I want to do, and I'm oblivious to all that. I'm just tunnel vision on where I want to get to. Being enthusiastic, which you might think, well, is that not a given? But I think as I start getting older, it starts getting obviously harder, it starts getting more challenging, but you still have to have that enthusiasm, and that takes you a long way. So just being coming into training hungry with an appetite. So it's everything's about the mental, because you can get a lot of talented players that have got the athleticism, technically bright, physically sound, but it's just that last little bit where you have to be mature enough to be, you know, hungry all the time, hungry, want to train. If it's fitness day, you want to be like, you want to do the fitness, you want to come first, you want to showcase all the work you've done away separate, and that comes down to the mental again of being able to be working and doing hard things without having to be encouraged. And that's not a given.
Mm,
That's probably, you're talking about 5% that want to do that 2%, and that's when they start talking about the 1%. They're not speaking about it in that sense, but for me, that is the sense of having. And I think Sir Alex Ferguson said it about, having a great work ethic is a massive talent.
yeah.
And now I really understand what he meant by that, because it's not a given. Even though players are in an environment where you'd think, well, why wouldn't you be? You love football. You've been doing it since you were a kid. You're getting all the perks of it, but it's a lot of the time it's that real hunger's not there, and then it comes back when they start to mature at 20, and it starts becoming really difficult at that point. So it's getting that early, that real appetite and maturity.
I wonder how much enjoyment plays into that, Leroy, as well. I think there's a difference, isn't there, slightly with enjoyment and that having that tenacity and whatever to push on. But I guess if you don't enjoy it, that that desire might wane anyway. Do you know what I mean? So
Well, that's
it's
what I mean about the enthusiasm, because
yeah,
you're in sessions and you're looking at boys and you're thinking they don't really look like they're enjoying it. Like it almost looks like they're coming to work.
yeah,
It's going to be an up. If it's like that, it's going to be an uphill battle. You have to be coming in and like. I think if you were to take them out of it for 3 years, send them to work, whether that be in a call center, in a factory, packing, just doing some sort of actual work, bricklaying, whatever it is, and then say, right, do you remember football? Right, I'm going to send you back into football now. You will see the enthusiasm that I'm talking about. I'm happy to be here. I can't wait to get in. I can't believe I only have to just put my socks on, put my shimpers on, and go play. Like so, it's being able to create that, and sometimes they need to go and experience working and actually seeing, do I want to be doing that, or I'm so privileged to be able to just come and be doing something that I genuinely enjoy doing, that I would do for free, and like, well, we do it in the end for free. So to be paid for it is a dream, or it should be a dream come true. And sometimes it's a lot of times it doesn't look like it's a dream.
that might be a lesson for an academy parent as well, Leroy. There is humbling them a little bit, exposing them to the real world that they
Some sort of work, yeah.
might have to go into. Listen, I don't want to take up too much more of your time, Leo. I really, really appreciate this. I've wanted to talk to you properly for ages. There's so much from there that I think people can take, but I think there's probably I've made loads of notes. I probably want to get you back on at some point, and we'll talk about specific things as well, because I know you read so much, and I think the Romario's journey is obviously going to change and develop, and there might be more things that you can talk about. So thank you so much for your time, and it was great to see him. Was it the week before last? We did an event at his school, and above anything else, it's all right having kids that are good at football and getting into this place and that place. Are they a good kid? Are they a nice kid? And he is a credit to you. And I'll give you an example. He was obviously dominating. So what he started to do was he took it in turns. He'd go and score, take it past everybody and score, and then he'd say to one of his teammates, "Right, it's your turn now," and he'd take everybody on, pass it to his teammate, and let them score. I just looked there. I just thought, what? Yeah, but yeah, that's what I mean. I think. Yeah, like I say, it's okay having kids in these places, and it's a nice thing. But if you're raising a nice, humble boy like that, then yeah, you're already winning, mate. So thank you very, very much, Leroy.
Just one last thing that I just remembered, sorry, that
Yeah.
I wanted to touch on, which is really important, and it can be for Grassroots or Academy, is you mentioned social media. So really quickly, because it's a massive topic, but not to sit on there, because you can get algorithms where you look at something and then it keeps like posting loads of same, like similar sort of things. So not to go on there and be looking at a kid who from who's in an academy as well, or even in a Grassroots, who's doing loads of one-to-ones. He seems to be in all these small group sessions. He's in Manchester doing this, he's in London doing that, he's having a one-to-one here, one-to-one there, he's in Leeds doing this. Then you start thinking, all right, I better be doing something as well. So you've had your week, so you might plan your week to be 3 sessions a week, but because you've seen that, you get influenced to thinking, nah, I better take him out tomorrow morning as well and in the evening, because so and so's done that session, and look, he's done that and he's done that. I need to be. So it's just working at your pace. If you've got your plan, stay with your plan, because, like you said earlier, not every kid's the same, and that's where you end up getting. That kid might really, really want to do it, and he might be driving it. You might tip the point and then tip the mental point again, where you start to creep into burnout again. Then you see bad performances, then you get frustrated, then the car journey comes back. So it all becomes a massive cycle.
I love it. Yeah. So such good advice. Social media has had it's got its positives, but there's a lot of negatives to it as well. I think that when you start going down a rabbit hole and comparing your kid again,
Mhm.
yeah, problems occur. Leroy, thank you
Yeah,
so much. We'll speak again, and
no problem.
yeah, I'll. It's good to speak. Good to speak to you.
Tom, my mate, thanks a lot.
Cheers,
Thanks for
Lee.
having me on as well.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you,
And
mate.
send my regards to Nick.
We'll do. We'll
All
do.
right. All right, mate. Tom,
See you
man.
later.
Cheers. Cheers.